The galaxy believed humanity was weak. It believed humans would beg, adapt, or disappear. What it did not understand was that humans learn fastest when they are cornered. For most of their history, humans had dreamed of the stars with hope in their hearts. They imagined exploration, discovery, and peaceful contact with other civilizations. When faster-than-light travel finally became real, celebrations spread across Earth. Humanity believed it had joined something greater. That belief died quickly. The galaxy was old, ancient, organized by powers that had ruled space for millions of years. At the center of it stood the Concord of 12, elder civilizations who decided which species mattered and which did not. When human diplomats arrived with open hands and hopeful voices, they were met with polite smiles and quiet dismissal. Humans were told they were too young, too fragile, too temporary. Trade was allowed, but protection was denied. Recognition was postponed for 10,000 years of stability. To the elders, humanity was not an ally. It was a passing phase. Still, humans moved forward. They settled nearby stars, built colonies, raised children under alien skies. Their worlds were modest but alive with effort. They believed survival itself was proof enough that they belonged. Then the raids began. The first colony fell in silence. No warning. No declaration of war. Ships descended, cities burned, and millions vanished into slave holds. The attackers were a predatory empire that thrived on conquest. They took what they wanted and left nothing behind. Earth cried out to the Concord. No answer came. The raids continued year after year. Sometimes small worlds. Sometimes major population centers. Each time, humanity fought back and lost. Their ships were weaker. Their weapons slower. Their technology centuries behind. Every victory cost them 10 defeats. The galaxy watched. Some species expressed concern. Others expressed profit. Human slaves became commodities, test subjects, labor, entertainment. And Earth learned something important. No one was coming. Hope slowly turned into resolve. Resolve hardened into anger. Anger became focus. Deep beneath human space, far from alien sensors and diplomatic eyes, a decision was made. Humanity would not win by playing the same game. They would not outnumber the galaxy. They would not outgun it. They would change the rules. The project was never announced. It had no public name. Only a purpose. Build a ship that the galaxy had deemed impossible. Build a weapon so terrifying that silence would follow wherever it appeared. Engineers worked until their hands shook. Scientists risked theories that elder races had abandoned out of fear. Every calculation balanced on disaster. Every test could end everything. People died. The work continued. They learned to bend space instead of crossing it. They learned to compress stellar matter instead of shielding against it. They learned that limits were often just decisions made by those who feared loss. Years passed in secrecy. And while the galaxy continued to profit from human suffering, something was taking shape in the dark. When the ship was finally completed, it did not look elegant. It looked inevitable. Its hull was scarred before it ever flew. Its core pulsed like a captured star. Its weapons were not designed for battle. They were designed for finality. The first activation nearly tore the moon it was hidden on apart. The second nearly collapsed reality around it. The third succeeded. Humanity now possessed something no one else did. A choice. The final message from Earth was not sent to the Concord. It was not sent to the raiders. It was sent to the ship itself. 2 words. Proceed. As space folded and stars stretched into meaningless lines, humanity crossed distances the galaxy thought impossible. The target was not a fleet. Not a border. Not a warning shot. It was the heart of the empire that had fed on them. Far ahead, the galaxy slept peacefully, unaware that its old assumptions were about to die. And when humanity arrived, the galaxy would finally understand the cost of silence. The Vexry Dominion had no warning. That alone was unheard of. For centuries, every major attack in the galaxy followed rituals. Scouts detected intrusions, early warning arrays screamed, fleets mobilized. Space itself usually gave notice when something massive moved through it. This time, space stayed silent. The first sign of trouble was not an alarm. It was confusion. On the outer edge of the Vexery home system, long-range sensors briefly flickered. Not enough to trigger alerts. Just a momentary distortion, like static across reality itself. Automated systems flagged it, categorized it as cosmic noise, and moved on. That was mistake number 1. Minutes later, a single ship appeared. It did not arrive through normal faster-than-light travel. There was no transition flash, no energy bloom. 1 second, there was nothing. The next, it was there, hanging above the orbital plane like a wound torn into space. Vexery command stations froze. The ship was enormous. Larger than any war vessel they had ever built. Its shape was unfamiliar, brutal, asymmetrical, as if function alone had decided its form. Energy readings poured in from every sensor, then immediately maxed out. The numbers made no sense. Shield output estimates overflowed. Reactor mass calculations contradicted known physics. Weapon signatures could not be classified. Some sensors simply shut down, unable to process what they were seeing. The Vexery admirals laughed. One ship, they decided. One oversized experiment from a desperate prey species. A showpiece meant to scare them. Humans had tried intimidation before. It had never worked. A small response fleet was dispatched. 12 cruisers. More than enough. The human ship did not move. No warnings were sent. No demands. No threats. That was mistake number 2. The first Vexery cruiser fired. Its plasma cannons lit space with burning arcs of energy, slamming into the human ship's hull. The blasts should have carved molten trenches across its surface. Instead, they vanished. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Gone. The human ship did not raise visible shields. It did not maneuver. It did not respond. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the space around the ship changed. Light bent inward. Gravity spiked. Instruments screamed as if reality itself was being squeezed. The human vessel's forward structure unfolded, layers of armored segments sliding apart to reveal a core glowing with impossible brightness. The weapon fired. There was no sound. No explosion. A line of condensed stellar fire cut through space with absolute precision. It struck the lead Vexery cruiser and passed through it as if it were fog. The beam continued onward, piercing 3 more ships before dissipating. Those ships did not explode. They collapsed. Metal, shields, and bodies crushed inward, reduced to dense spheres smaller than escape pods. The remains glowed briefly, then faded into cold, dead matter drifting in silence. The remaining Vexery ships broke formation. That was mistake number 3. The human ship moved for the first time. It did not chase. It repositioned. Space folded around it in short, violent jumps, placing it at impossible angles relative to the fleeing cruisers. Each movement defied inertia, ignoring momentum and distance. Another weapon fired, this one invisible. Gravitational waves rippled outward, collapsing one cruiser into itself. Another tore apart as opposing forces ripped it from 2 directions at once. A third lost power entirely, its reactor crushed into non-existence. Within 40 seconds, the response fleet was gone. The human ship transmitted its first message. It was short, calm, translated perfectly into Vexery command language. This is a demonstration. Vexery High Command erupted into chaos. Emergency signals flooded every military channel. Planetary defenses powered up. Orbital platforms aligned. Thousands of ships scrambled to battle positions. The Dominion had fought wars for generations, and it reacted as it always had, by overwhelming force. What it did not understand was that this was not a battle. This was a statement. The human ship advanced deeper into the system, passing defense lines without resistance. Every weapon fired at it failed. Missiles vanished mid-flight. Beams bent away as if space itself refused to cooperate. On the surface of the Vexry homeworld, billions watched the sky. They saw a new star appear above them. The ship positioned itself directly over the primary military continent. No cities were targeted. No civilians harmed. The message that followed was broadcast planet-wide. We are humanity. You took our people. You ignored our warnings. This ends now. The planetary defense grid fired everything it had. Nothing worked. The human ship's main cannon charged again. This time, the energy drawn from the nearby star caused visible changes. Solar flares erupted. Magnetic storms raged across the system. The shot was fired into empty space, just beyond the planet. The star responded. A controlled stellar eruption surged outward, redirected by forces no one had ever mastered. It washed across the orbital shipyards, the military stations, the fleet docks. In seconds, centuries of Vexry military power burned away. The sky went dark as debris rained into the planet's atmosphere, burning up like falling stars. Then came the silence. Across the galaxy, sensors detected it. Entire systems went quiet. Communications failed. Trade routes halted. Observers from neutral worlds watched data feeds freeze, then return with impossible readings. One by one, empires realized something terrifying had happened. A prey species had crossed a line no one else dared approach. Humanity had not begged. It had not negotiated. It had not asked permission. It had acted. The Concord of 12 convened an emergency session for the first time in thousands of years. Their ancient leaders stared at projections they did not understand and felt something they had not felt in ages. Fear. Because the message was clear now. If humanity could do this to the Vexry, it could do it to anyone. And somewhere inside the human warship, its crew watched in silence. There was no celebration. No cheers. Only a shared understanding. This was only the beginning. The silence spread faster than the fire. Across hundreds of star systems, long-range observers replayed the same impossible data again and again, hoping it would change. It did not. The Vexry Dominion, an empire feared for millennia, had been broken in less than an hour. Not defeated. Broken. Their fleets were gone. Their shipyards erased. Their confidence shattered so completely that no counterattack followed. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Vexry did nothing. They hid. Merchants rerouted trade lanes away from the ruined system. Smugglers went dark. Pirate bands vanished overnight. Even species that had never feared the Vexry before felt the shift. Something fundamental had changed. And at the center of it all, one human ship waited in orbit. It did not pursue fleeing vessels. It did not bombard cities. It did not speak again. That restraint terrified the galaxy more than the destruction. Because everyone understood what unrestrained humans could have done. Inside the Concord's ancient halls, panic took a different form. The elder species were not emotional like humans. They did not shout or argue loudly. Instead, they grew very quiet. Their representatives studied projections, simulations, and threat analyses that all reached the same conclusion. They had misjudged humanity, not because humans were weak, but because humans were willing to gamble everything. The Concord had abandoned dangerous technologies long ago. Controlled singularities. Stellar manipulation. Reality folding. They had labeled them existential risks and locked the research away. Empires had too much to lose. Humans had lost already. That realization echoed through the council chambers like a warning bell. Emergency envoys were dispatched. Messages were drafted and redrafted, softened, rephrased, made diplomatic. None of them sounded right. How did one speak to a species that had rewritten the balance of power in a single day? Meanwhile, the human ship remained exactly where it was. On its bridge, the crew watched feeds from across the system. They saw abandoned military stations drifting in ruins. They saw Vexry escape craft fleeing in every direction. They saw signals begging for orders that never came. No one spoke. The cost of what they had done weighed heavily on them, not guilt, but gravity. Every person aboard knew that this moment would define humanity forever. The ship's commander finally broke the silence. "Record everything," the order came. "Every reaction. Every transmission. Let the galaxy see what follows violence." Hours passed. Then a message arrived. It was not from the Vexery. It was from the Concorde. The transmission carried authority, tradition, and an assumption that power still lay where it always had. It welcomed humanity. It acknowledged misunderstandings. It expressed regret for past inaction. It requested immediate negotiations. The crew listened without expression. The reply was sent without delay. "We asked for help for 30 years. You watched. This is not a negotiation. This is a correction." The message spread faster than any fleet. Neutral worlds began evacuating strategic installations. Minor empires declared sudden neutrality. Defense networks powered down rather than risk provoking attention. Everywhere, planners asked the same question. How many ships did humanity have? The answer was one. That truth unsettled the galaxy even more. Because humans had not built an armada. They had built a lesson. Deep within the ship's core, the singularity engine pulsed steadily. It did not strain. It did not overheat. It waited. The ship had enough power for several more demonstrations, enough to erase fleets, crack moons, silent systems. But humanity did not intend to use it freely. That was the difference. On Earth, people watched the news feeds in stunned silence. For decades, they had been victims. Refugees. Beggars on the galactic stage. Now, other civilizations spoke their name with care. Parents held their children and cried, not in fear, but in release. The pain of 30 years did not vanish, but it finally had meaning. Humanity had been heard. Back aboard the ship, a second message arrived. This one was from the Vexery leadership. Stripped of arrogance. Stripped of dominance. It asked for terms. The commander did not answer immediately. Instead, the ship repositioned once more, closer to the planet, but still careful. Still restrained. The movement alone caused panic across the surface. Defense systems shut down completely. Then the reply was sent. You will return every human you have taken. Alive. Unharmed. You will dismantle your slave markets. You will never raid another species again. A pause followed. Then acceptance. The galaxy listened as the Vexery, once feared conquerors, submitted. Not because they had been destroyed, but because they understood what would happen if they were. In the halls of the Concorde, the elder species faced a truth they could not escape. Humanity was no longer a minor power. It was not even a major one. It was something else entirely. A species that did not seek control of the galaxy. Only assurance that no one would ever hunt them again. And that frightened everyone. Because humanity had proven something no civilization ever had. That when pushed far enough, humans did not ask the universe for justice. They built it. The first human transport emerged from folded space above Earth 3 weeks later. It was not a warship. It was a cargo vessel, scarred and old, escorted by the same human craft that had silenced an empire. Every camera on the planet turned skyward. Billions held their breath as the ship descended slowly, carefully, as if afraid of causing harm by moving too fast. When the landing bay doors opened, no cheers came at first. Only silence. The people who stepped out were thin. Scarred. Some walked with assistance. Others were carried. They wore the marks of chains long removed, and their eyes carried memories no words could hold. Families rushed forward when recognition struck, sobs breaking through decades of restraint. The galaxy watched this too. It watched human parents collapse in relief. Children cling to strangers who were suddenly home. It watched humanity choose reunion over revenge. That choice unsettled many. Because the Concorde had expected executions. Retribution. The crushing of the Vexery homeworld as a warning to others. That was how the galaxy worked. Humanity had rewritten that expectation. More transports followed. Dozens. Hundreds. From labor camps, factories, forgotten asteroids, human captives returned. Each arrival reinforced the same message. This war was not about domination. It was about ending something. The Vexari complied fully. Their slave markets burned, by their own hands. Their raiding fleets were dismantled under human observation. Entire military doctrines were rewritten out of fear that humanity might return. And still, the human warship remained in Vexari orbit. Watching. The Concorde moved quickly after that. A delegation of elder species requested an emergency summit with humanity. This time, the request carried no conditions. No delays. No polite dismissals. The location was neutral space, carefully chosen, heavily shielded. Humanity agreed. When the human representatives arrived, they did not come with fleets. They came with diplomats, scientists, and one quiet escort ship, the same one. The message was unmistakable. The Concorde spoke first. They praised humanity's remarkable restraint. They expressed regret for past decisions. They offered membership, trade privileges, shared technology, and formal apologies. The human response was calm. "You did not fail us through ignorance," the human speaker said. "You failed us through convenience." The Concorde had no answer to that. Humanity did not demand control. It did not seek seats of dominance. It asked for only three things. No species would be enslaved again. No raider empire would be tolerated. And humanity would never be ignored when it asked for help. The Concorde agreed. Not because it wanted to. Because it understood what refusal meant. Back aboard the warship, preparations began for departure. Its mission was complete. It had never been intended as a permanent presence. It was a reminder, not a ruler. The commander stood alone on the bridge, watching the stars one last time from Vexari space. The galaxy felt different now. Quieter. More careful. Humanity had not conquered it. Humanity had taught it fear and responsibility. As the ship turned away and folded space once more, observers across the galaxy marked the moment. Not because destruction followed, but because restraint had. The galaxy would remember that. The human warship never fired again. That fact confused historians for centuries. After the destruction of the Vexari military and the return of the enslaved, most species expected more. They waited for humanity to expand, to enforce its will, to turn its impossible power outward. That was how empires behaved. That was how strength had always been used. But nothing happened. The ship vanished from public records. Its location became classified even within human space. Some believed it had been dismantled. Others whispered that it waited somewhere beyond mapped reality, watching. The truth was simpler. Humanity had already won. The galaxy changed quietly at first. Raider activity collapsed almost overnight. Slave markets shut down, not because treaties demanded it, but because buyers disappeared. No one wanted to be the next example. Young species were treated differently. When they asked for protection, they received answers. Not always help, but never silence. The memory of humanity's 30 years of unanswered pleas haunted the elder races. They had learned the cost of indifference. Within the Concorde, old doctrines were rewritten. Dangerous technologies were studied again, not to replicate humanity's weapon, but to understand how fear had blinded them. For the first time in millions of years, elder civilizations admitted something unthinkable. They had been wrong. Humanity did not become a galactic police force. It did not patrol borders or dictate law. Instead, it became something far more disruptive. A precedent. It showed that power did not require domination. That restraint could be more terrifying than cruelty. That a single, decisive act, used sparingly, could reshape the behavior of thousands of worlds. On Earth, life slowly returned to something like normal. Memorials were built, not to celebrate victory, but to remember why it had been necessary. Children grew up hearing stories not of conquest, but of survival. They learned that humanity's greatest weapon had not been the ship. It had been the refusal to disappear. Years later, A minor empire attempted to test the new order. A border skirmish. A missing colony. Quiet aggression. The response did not come from humanity. It came from the galaxy itself. Trade partners withdrew. Neighbors issued warnings. The Concord intervened before a single human message was sent. The crisis ended without bloodshed. That was when everyone finally understood. The warship had not made humanity powerful. It had made everyone else careful. In the end, historians agreed on one thing. The day humanity fired its ultimate weapon was not the day the galaxy went silent. It was the day the galaxy began to listen. And somewhere, far beyond charts and sensors, a single ship waited, cold, dormant, unnecessary. Not because it was weak, but because its lesson had already been learned. Humanity did not need to rule the stars. It only needed to remind them that some species, when pushed far enough, would change the universe rather than accept its cruelty. And that was something the galaxy would never forget.